Hey, good evening, everyone, and welcome to another space with me, Kalu Aja. We call it the Money Spaces, and here we talk money, the economy, and of course, personal finance. So it's been an interesting 2 weeks, I would say, if you live in Nigeria or you invest in Nigeria. We've had, I would say, two major policies, right? We've had the should we say the removal of subsidy or the regulation of petroleum prices in Nigeria. That's a major policy because fuel PMS drives literally everything in Nigeria, right? So we've seen the NNPC and the president make statements that have led to the deregulation of retail prices at the pumps. So we've seen the pump price go up as much as 300% and all that, right? So big change there. Also, we've seen on the exchange rate side, we've seen, should we say, is it a fixing of a defixing, a devaluation, and unpeg? We've seen that happen in the exchange rate of the naira to the dollar. And what that has meant is that if you go to the banks, there's no more NAFEX, there's no more fixed price. That NAFEX price that the central bank used as its own reference currency, that has been removed. And we now have, as the central bank calls it, a willing buyer, willing seller environment, right? That's what we have. These are two massive changes in Nigeria. And I tell you why. The largest expense in Nigeria today, right, is the fuel subsidy. The largest expense. This is not, it's not even the budget. The largest expense that Nigeria pays today is the subsidy we pay on imported PMS. So we take crude out to say Netherlands, they refine it to PMS, and we bring it back to Nigeria. But the NNPC is guaranteeing a retail price across the federation. So whatever price is listed at the port as the ports at the price of entry, NNPC pays a difference between that price and of course the price that is retail. That's the subsidy. It's more than the budget for education, health combined. It's the largest expense. You just don't see it because it doesn't sit in the budget. And the way it's paid is that the NNPC will of course do a debit and pay itself. So the money doesn't go to the FAC, got the Consolidated Revenue Fund. So the money doesn't come in. That's why you see the NNPC, sorry, the CBN governor saying, we've sold oil, but we see no money. That's where that's coming from. So that's the biggest expense. So in a way, that is gone from the balance sheet of Nigeria. So it means on our income statement, we will see funds reflecting the sale of PMS at market prices. Same thing with the subsidy on dollar. The Central Bank of Nigeria keeps the reserves of Nigeria, and those reserves are not savings, they are reserves to pay for imports. When we export crude oil, we get dollars, we keep it in central bank. The central bank uses those dollars to pay for imports. But the central bank also uses those dollars to quote unquote defend the naira, which means they have a peg. Central bank says that the peg is going to be 468. That was in the past, and that they will defend that peg, meaning that if you go to the central bank and you request for dollars at 468, they should give you. But that has not happened. The airlines have been owed about $800 million as the international airline. So the peg was just there, but it didn't work. But we were taking foreign reserves, our foreign reserves, to defend that peg. So that's the second cost to Nigerians because when we defend that peg, that's money that should have gone somewhere else that we're using to defend this strong naira. So the naira seems to be, the exchange rate seems to be, should we say, liberalized. The PMS prices seem to be liberalized. So that's just the background. But today we're just talking about the rollout and what it actually means. If you ask the common Nigerian on the street or on Twitter what is actually happening, you get many answers. You get many answers. Let's talk about the currency part. You hear devaluation, you hear free float, you hear on peg. No one really knows what has happened? It's the same with the PMS subsidy issue. If you ask me what has happened, have they removed subsidy? Have they increased price? No one really knows. And the why no one knows is that there's been really, should we say, a purposeful intent not to be very clear on what the government wants to do. Take the PMS policy. Let's call it a policy for now. Like I've said, that's one of the most significant policies that any government can enact, to say we're going to liberalize the retail price of PMS. But that was passed by a statement by the president at the inauguration. Just a statement saying subsidy is gone. There has been no follow up communication, no policy, no directive, nothing from the federal government. The only policy directive we have seen is from the NNPC. And the NNPC is no longer in quote like an agency of the government. There's NNPC Limited. They are a player in the market. So they are stating their own, how they are going to run their own operations. The regulators that have been formed from the Petroleum Industry Act haven't said anything. That's why there's so much confusion. If it's an increase, if it's an undermodulation, if it's a, we don't know, because we've not been given clear policy statements by the regulators. Same with the Naira exchange rate policy. We used to have a peg, we used to have multiple exchange rates. Now, first of all, a newspaper published that the peg is gone and it's now whatever, 6 something. CBN denied it. Then CBN, the rumor came on Monday saying, hey, the banks have been asked to sell at willing buyer, willing seller, meaning that you can go to the bank and say, I want to buy at whatever price, and the bank will sell to you at based on their own pricing and all that. We heard that rumor out. We didn't hear any communication. I had to go on Twitter and screenshot CBN's website. Then later on, CBN came out with statements, a circular saying, it's now willing buyer, willing seller. All the rates have been merged into one rate. So there's no more PTA rate. It's now all import export. In fact, it's just that one rate, right? And you can go to your bank and then you can buy. That's what they first came out with. Then I saw a PowerPoint on the CBN website saying the 41 items are still banned, and just maybe clarifying their initial circular. Again, just that circular, and that's, should we say, 8-slide PowerPoint. This is the largest economy in Africa, changing policy that affects trade, investments, FPI, FDI, even how you spend your money. And look at the paucity of information coming out. Very, very limited. No one has come out on air from the government side to say, this is what we are doing, and take questions, follow-up questions on that. So I'm beginning to think that it's sort of like a strategy to say, let's just push this out there, let the market react. And if it's a bad policy, we take it back. If it's a good policy, we retain it. But that's what we're seeing right now. There is no clear directive from the federal or the CBN on both the retail price policy and both the the CBN Naira policy. There's not. That's why you have the confusion everywhere where no one knows what is going on. Let me try to help out and say what I think is going on. On the dollar side, or what they seem to have done is to say we're going to have one rate, one single rate. And then what they've done is to allow the market to determine that one rate. What they are targeting are the foreigners that are going to buy Nigerian bonds. Because you couldn't buy Nigerian bonds in the past, because when you bought, you would buy at 468 in FX rate. So if you bring $1 million, you get 468 million naira. But the black market rate was about 700. So you are losing money already. So someone says, and to be clear, if you are bringing in money through foreign portfolio investments, you can't do it through black market. You have to bring it into CBN, get a capital importation certificate. That's how they know you've brought money in. So when you want to take that money out of Nigeria, they know that the money you brought in, that you are taking out. That's why it's not really targeted at you, the Nigerian, that is saying, I want to buy PT no, that you are second base, right? Because the idea, and it's a good idea, The idea is to get foreign capital to flow back to Nigeria. When foreign capital flows back to Nigeria, then they can start to remove the 44 items. Your cards, your debit cards will start to work if you go abroad and all that. For now, there's a lot of dollars in Nigeria, but CBN doesn't have dollars. Because if you go to the streets of Nigeria, you can sell the dollars at 700. But if you go to the central bank, you sell at 468. So nobody sold to the central bank. Everybody sold through P2P and through the private sector. So now, what they're trying to do is to say there's no more NAFEX rate, there's no more P2P, there's no more NAFEX rate, right? If you have dollars to sell, bring it to your bank will buy from you on a 1 naira spread. Your bank will buy from you, then your bank will turn around and sell to Nigerians. That's the policy. It's a good policy because it removes the inefficiency that the Buhari guys did, where they were giving you dollar at 463 and you can go and sell and become a billionaire overnight. It removes that inefficiency. It allows the economy to price itself appropriately. Imports would fall, export earnings should go up. But most importantly, what it does, it attracts more remittances. Folks that have money in the abroad, if you go to a savings account, it pays nothing. It pays you 1%, maybe 2%. Now you can actually bring that money to Nigeria and invest in a government bond and get Naira, right? But you can then buy a dollar forward and take your money out, which is you couldn't do in the past because there was no, CBN wasn't paying out dollars. You also what happened when MTN tried to take out their money from Nigeria, their own dividends. They got hit hard. So that's the real target. It's a process. It's not going to happen today. But once the money starts to flow to Nigeria, then I think they are now going to be in a better position to then roll out the other things and say 44 items can fall, your cards can work and all that. I remember it's the banks doing it, not the CBN. The rate you see on CBN is the average of what the banks are doing. That's what's supposed to be. But this thing I've just said hasn't been explained to the Nigerian people. So many people are like, what's going on? Can we go to the bank and get dollars? Is it a devaluation? Once you've removed the peg, then you've allowed the naira to either devalue or to appreciate. That's what you've done. If it's pegged, it can't devalue or appreciate. If you take away the peg, like what they've done now, then it can appreciate and it can devalue. That's on the dollar side. On the petroleum side, what they've done also is a revenue push. They removed the retail pricing, the peg, the regulated price on petroleum to allow NNPC sell or PMS at a higher price so that revenues to the federal, state, and local government would increase. So the net effect of this PMS issue is that you're going to have lots of money flowing to the federal, state, and local government because there's no more NNPC paying a subsidy. All that subsidy money is going to go back to the FAC. That's why they've done this. Also, the secondary idea is to then attract the private sector to do set up refineries. Right now, we have Dangote refinery. It's not ready. I don't know what they commissioned, but it's not ready. And it's not going to be ready next month. We already see Dangote getting a license to import petrol. Nothing wrong with that, but it's not ready. So from now till Dangote refinery gets ready, he has to import petrol. Even if Dangote refinery is ready today, he still has to buy crude oil. Even if he buys in naira, not dollars, he is still paying for the crude oil in the naira converted price of crude oil, which is sold in dollars. So the local refinery is not going to change your retail pricing for PMS. It will reduce it a bit. The price of demurrage, the price of shipping, of paying insurance, that would go. But the real cost of that PMS isn't going anywhere because it's priced in dollars. And remember, the CBN has also removed the cap on dollars. So what you're going to have is that the cap on dollars has gone up or can come down, and that's going to affect your realty price in Nigeria. So long and short, that's really my idea of what's happening, right? The pain has come. This is the pain we spoke about. 300% increase in your costs. The pain is here, and the government is doing nothing about the pain. They've said there's a committee that's going to meet and fashion our minimum wage. Even before this increase in prices, the minimum wage should have gone up. I'm a capitalist. I don't like minimum wage. I think it kills jobs. But at a point, you cannot have an economy where you are paying people 30,000 minimum wage. We did a research about the banks that are paying less than 100,000 to workers that work in the bank. You can't, in any conscience, pay workers, young people, less than 100,000 naira in an economy in Nigeria. You just cannot. You just cannot. So that has got to go up to at least give a minimum basic floor to everyone so people can consume. The biggest problem in Nigeria is no one can buy anything. No one can buy anything. How many people on this Twitter page can buy a bag of rice? I don't mean you have, but I just mean you just want to buy a bag of rice and give someone without thinking about it. How many people? How many? So nobody buy new cars. If unless your company buys you a new car or you get a new car gift, no one's buying new cars. How many times do you see people change their fridge or their televisions? So the very, very low consumption, very, very low wages, and that's the problem in Nigeria. If you don't consume, no jobs will be created. And this PMS and dollar increase are very, very good for the economy. Long term, they fix the inefficiency, but short term, they're going to cause a lot of pain. I don't see the government really coming out to address it. I think they are throwing this out there to the wall to see if it sticks. I'm not sure they have a plan on how to ameliorate the effect. If they have, they should come out and say it. If it's good, we'll also talk about it. All right, guys, I've spoken enough. 17 minutes. Let's get Dami. Dami Larry, the floor is yours. Go ahead, sir.
Yeah, good evening, everyone, and good evening, Mr. Kalu. Thanks for the analysis you've done. Um, I think for me, I've been looking at a few policies that have been made so far, and it's giving me as a person a concern, and it's looking like things are playing out in a way to bring money to the purse of the government. And my fear is, what are they doing to put money in the pockets of the common people? You know, during administration, I remember when people were fighting for minimum wage, and all. The day they signed that minimum wage, I remember I told some people, "Hey, don't jubilate yet." I just felt I just didn't trust these guys. Not long after that, I saw that Buhari came up with a policy to increase VAT by 50%. I mean, all my life before Buhari came into position, I've always, there's, VAT has always been 5%, and it seems like that's the cap. I mean, that's the universal thing. Until Buhari made us understand that no, we can change it. And, a sudden increment of 50% over VAT, that's a lot. Because when you're talking about VAT, even the fetus in the belly we pay. Now the minimum wage you actually increase from 18,000 to 30,000 only affects folks that work. I mean, folks that get salary, and even till today we still have some government that has not paid that minimum wage. But you increase VAT, and the VAT took effect immediately. So it's a thing of fear for me. Like, yes, I understand that the party is a capitalist ideologist party, so to say, and there's no reason to be doubting this. We have studied some of their policies. I mean, in the past 80 years, and it's still a continuation. Now they said they removed the issue of PMS. Now, with the way things are going now, it's like, okay, they're trying to cut anything that looks like government is servicing anything in the favor of the citizen. Now, it's my question is, okay, by doing this, what are you putting in place? Yes, UK. When you look at UK government, maybe they have some of these things, increment of tax and all, but we could see what they are doing with those money, such that the citizen who is paying tax heavily knows can see it on the road. You can see it through your electricity and all. My fear here is with all these increments and leveling the citizens heavily so as to enrich the pocket of the government, what are these people planning to bring back?
Yeah,
They've been talking about, I know you, I know that's probably not the
Dami,
focus of this.
yeah, I hear you.
Okay, they've been talking about the issue of student loan. And the moment they spoke about student loan, I told some people, this thing is not student loan. Just look at it. There is a scam here. Now, when I took my time to read the requirement for the student loan is even crazy, because for you to be qualified for the student loan, both your father and mother earning for the month must be capped at 40,000 naira. Because they can't, your parents must be earning maybe 500,000 naira, at the must not earn up to 5,000 naira in a year before you can I mean, before you can qualify for it. Now, when you look at the requirement of people who will sign for you, it is in the level of a judge. How can a family that is as poor as having less than 500,000 naira income annually have access to having someone, a judge or a lawyer of 8 years or 10 years experience?
Hey, Dami, I hear you. Dami, completely great point. I just want to just rotate the room. I completely hear you, right? And I agree with you, right? I didn't want to bring up that student loan policy thing because, whilst even though I like the idea, it's better than not having it. But again, it goes back to the idea of it looks like we're rushing to bring out things to have points on the board and not really doing a deep introspection. If you look at the my own take with that student loan board is the money is too small. It's 1% of VAT, 1% of it's too small. That's not going to do anything in Nigeria. That 1% looks like a lot, but it's 50 billion. 50 billion. The presidential jet at last time I saw was 8 billion alone. So I agree with your points, I think what you're saying is that the government, what are we going to get back as citizens, right? If
Yes.
we're in 300,000, 200% hike, what are we getting back? I would say this, right? This is when elections should, no, we don't do elections here, but this is when you want to hold your elected guys to account. Your elected officials are the ones that spend the money. And like I told you, the next month's FARC is going to be nearly double. So whatever your state or local government is getting today is going to be double whatever the state or local government. So keep that in mind that whatever you are doing, you can make all the noise you want, but if you don't hold the guys that are going to spend that money to account, then you're wasting your time. You've got to hold the folks in the local government, in the state, in the federal government accountable for the increase in the PMS that you are paying for. If you don't, you only can blame yourself. You can't blame anybody else. Let's get Lucky in here. Lucky, you've got the floor, sir. Dami, thank you so much. Lucky, go ahead.
Yeah, good evening. How are you guys doing?
We're doing
Good
very
evening, Mr. Carly. Yes, I what you said was what was on my mind. I wanted to tell him that Sam just replied that your circle of we have circle of influence and circle of concern. Your circle of influence, I think, covers your representatives that are very close to you. You can still talk to them. But when it gets up to the government or to the president, it just shares money to the states. And what you do with it, what they do with it matters more in your life than whatever the president's position is. Because if you look at the body reaction, they are just making these policies, no safety net. And I keep telling people that we are Nigerians. I'm not sure we've really had a safety net for any policy that has been done that I've known. Even the time of the palliatives, it was hidden. So I really don't expect so much, like in terms of helping people that maybe government has an idea of or has a plan to help people or something. Because even if they dole out palliatives, these same people that you've elected are still the ones that will still stand in the way of it. if they dole out loans, student loans, these people will stand in the way of it. I even spoke to someone about student loans that no matter how hard they want to put the criteria, there'll still be a way around that the student loans that even people working will get it. Because if you saw the case of Empower and all these things, people that had jobs were still having Empower applications, their Empower applications granted and everything. So I just said the loans, almost everybody that can have access to it will still have access to it. The main thing I just say is that we should just hope. I think that's like the only strategy we have in Nigeria. We
Hope,
should just hope that
hope.
our yes, no, as citizens, I'm saying we should just hope that our representatives, people representing us, do the best they can. Because most times
bro,
they
I,
see double
bro, I,
money now, they will
bro,
just
I,
double their convoy.
okay, I want to disagree with you openly, man. You have
Okay.
you have a local government chairman that's
Yes.
one local government chairman in Nigeria gets less than 200 million naira a month. You have
Okay.
legislators, states, not federal, state that live in your state, right? How can you
Yes. Yes.
can't hold your local government? Forget governor, he has the ADCRB. Local government
Yeah.
want to clean your road. You can't hold that guy responsible. He doesn't have people you can hold responsible. He doesn't have a mother or a father. You can go to him and all that kind of stuff. I don't know.
You
Hope
can.
a strategy.
Okay.
You, you,
I know it's not a
you
strategy.
hope.
You can hold them accountable, but
Yeah, yeah. We should.
most of the time when you see these guys that are your chairman, you see these guys that are there. They can't give what they don't have. Most of them don't really have the IQ for better
Look, let me
ideas.
tell you a story.
Or they just want
Let
to
me tell you a
read.
story. True story. This is
Yeah.
in Lagos. True
Okay.
story in Lagos. There's a guy in Lagos, right? What he
Okay.
would do every month when Uncle Jamola used to publish before now we're taking for granted. Back then, she used to publish local government what they got. That guy would print that newspaper paper. He would print it out in like hundreds of copies and he pasted it on every street in the local government. Old retired guy, every street. And he would request that he wanted his road to be fixed. They ignored him. Then he became a nuisance. Every month he would go and post it. So even people that didn't even like him, like, oh, this guy's getting 15 million naira a month. Oh, okay, you have to drop money. The local government guys now became irritated, went and fixed his road just so that he would stop publicizing what they were getting. I mean, that's his own way of protesting. He didn't carry placards. There are many ways now. Twitter, there's a handle called Tracker. Tracker will give you what has been
Yeah.
given to your local government and go and actually track it for you. And all you need to do is to retweet it. They're not asking you for money. They are saying just retweet and put pressure. So I don't want you to say hope. Don't tell Nigerians to hope, right? There are, there,
Yeah.
there are specific things you can do to track the money. They are going to get double the money they're getting today, and you are going to pay 7.5% VAT, and you're going to pay 300% increase in tax. You can't hope that this will get better. Tunde, what's your take? Are you hoping, Tunde? Are you hoping guy or
Well, I'm not hoping. No. I hope you
I
are
can
hearing
hear
me.
you?
And Carlo. Yes, I'm not hoping. Well, I think one of the challenges we have in Nigeria, I appreciate what you have said about the issue of people. One of the challenges one have in Nigeria is most of these local governments, by the way they are now configured, their monies are consumed by the state governments. I can talk about Lagos State and work. I live in Lagos State. I have people working in the local governments. Local governments in Lagos State virtually do little or nothing because most of it is consumed by the state governments. That one is the fact on the ground. They will do roads, yes. They will just in the first year they will do some roads, Most of the projects in my own local government, I still know Ojudu LCD, is even done by the constituency project of our rep. Indeed, in my area where I'm staying today, most of what we enjoy today is through the constituency projects of our representatives, even than the local governments. That one is a fact in Lagos State. So, and this is the richest state of the federation. So now let's come back to the issue of the petrol subsidy and removal. I think the challenge this government has is they came in on a goodwill. You see, because on a goodwill like the Buhari administration, so they quickly want to rush things. But I think the challenge is in rushing things in a democracy, you hit stonewall. For instance, the cabinet is not in session. You don't have a cabinet. We don't have a minister of finance. So who is giving what policy? The central bank head is an acting head. So he will have to be careful. What does he say? He doesn't have full powers. So that's one. Even you brought up the issue of NMPC too. So I think the problem government is just quickly rushing to do this to be seen to be doing
Mm.
things. But in the long run, some of these things will boomerang. For instance, the issue of fuel. People are looking at, and as you rightly said, this fuel price will soon go up. Dangote. July now, you are going this person, somebody who is now going to be importing fuel. At what rate is this going to import fuel? Is government going to reduce most of those charges? Because those charges that are going to fuel also go back to the
Yeah,
government. The MRA charge goes to the
just to know,
government. Port and charge goes to the government.
just to be clear,
So it's not that. So
just to be clear, right? NNPC is importing PMS via Dangote. That's what's actually good. Just to be clear, right? So NNPC is a player. They own 20% of Dangote. They are importing PMS via Dangote's wharf and all that. That just to be clear on that. Yeah.
yes. So thank you very much for that clarification. So those are the things in stake. So I expect that this administration should really quickly put its team in place. No one single person, no matter how knowledgeable he is, can do it. Democracy doesn't look for messiahs. Democracy looks for people who have team players who work together. And I think they should do that fast. Because gradually, you are saying state governments will get two times. Many state governments are a lot of obligations. Some states are owing up to 2 years' salary. So even if the money comes today, they have abilities to swallow it up. They have abilities to consume all these things. So even if it comes three times, and again, our governments, people believe that when you are in government, you have to spend. I know you always say that in Nigeria doesn't have a revenue problem, but a spending problem. And I agree with it in total. Go and look at our budget. Indeed, I don't want to look at that budget because you can't even understand that. Is this a country in financial crisis or what?
Yeah.
Look at the state kind of just demolishing. People build things with money, you are demolishing it.
Yeah. Can
You see, and that's the challenge. That's the challenge we have as a nation. I like what you said. I think we as the people have been so docile. We look at our government and whatever the government says, we should follow. So I think maybe when we see those figures coming up again, we would rise. But the truth is, unless our system of government is changed, how many people are effectively working in our civil service? People in the road refineries, they are still getting paid, and nobody has been sacked. The NFPC man, those people, nobody is being held accountable. And for me, I have three tests as I round up for any government policy. Are they sincere? Are they sincere? Two, are they transparent in their process? People should see, be able to discuss that. Then are they going to be held accountable? The challenge in Nigeria is that we don't want transparency, we don't want accountability, we only want miracles.
okay.
And so maybe because of that, that's why. So closing and rounding up, I believe this government should quickly, as you rightly said, put in their cabinets. The CBN will not say anything now. They will say, and the challenge, there's one thing, indeed in my office, it became an argument. You go to the CBN website, go and look at the dollar something. They will say they are putting in an average. And what they will do that during the day, the dollar will go to 700, 800, and then it will just come to close down at one imaginary figure. You think, the naira is gaining. And I say, no. How many people are finding at that actual price? As you already said, is Emirates coming back to Nigeria? The actually has something $1 million
Yeah.
held by of the other. Are they willing to pay it out? These even our foreign reserves, are they really liquid? Honestly
Yeah.
speaking, most of the, and that's why
And
I call for central bank produce your accounts. Thank you very much.
got you. And just to be clear, right? I know on Twitter people have been going back and forth on my handle. You support this, you don't support this. Guys, remember what we had 8 years ago, where you had PMS price subsidized in quote, where you are paying for subsidized petrol. That was a tax on you. When you had dollar subsidized, that was a tax on you. You were not enjoying any subsidy. You were paying a tax. Whatever they are doing today, shoddy, unplanned, it's still better than what was done in 8 years ago. Right now, I'm reading a text now that the CBN has said you can withdraw cash from your domiciliary account or you can transfer from domiciliary account up to $10,000 per day. What is CBN doing? They are trying to fund that new market they've created. The dollars are already in Nigeria, guys. Don't forget, there's already about $10 to $20 billion sitting in domiciliary account in Nigeria. But why aren't people bringing that money out? Because you don't take it to CBN at 468. The P2P market does nearly a billion a day. That's people transferring money back and forth without going through the government, i.e., CBN. So when you liberalize that market, more dollars would come to the market, and then that price, because the price is willing buyer, willing seller, can go down or can go up based on demand and supply, not based on what a governor feels. Comrade, you've got the floor. Comrade Batside. Hope I got that right.
Yeah. I mean, good evening, everyone. Thank you for giving me the opportunity to speak. Okay, I'll be very quick. So I think it's a good thing that subsidy is gone. My worry is the fact that this current government does not really have a comprehensive plan on how to make sure that the pain and the problems are mitigated. For example, I'm yet to see a very serious and intentional plan in the short term to sort of desensitize, the economy from the potential inflationary impact that sudden price increase would cause. I mean, let's have it right. It was just very easy. Anybody can say subsidy is gone. If you're in that position, it doesn't take any effort. It doesn't take any special. I don't know why people are just jumping up and down and saying, "Oh, this government did something special." Nothing special. Anybody, any illiterate can just go climb that podium and say subsidy is gone, and then it to be implemented. But what makes you special is how skillfully you're able to navigate the stormy waters, particularly in the short term. The minimum wage is still 30,000 naira per month. You can't fill your tank, as to speak. If you use a small car, you will struggle to fill your tank with 30,000 naira per month. And we all know how important PMS is within the economy. I'm not saying subsidy should not be removed, but my problem is that I don't think this government really has any original plan and a roadmap to sort of ease people into that removal and ensure that the economy does not collapse. And let's have it right. We have not started seeing the real impact of subsidy removal yet. I think it's going to be from July, onwards that we'll really start to see the ripple effects of that sudden hike in price. Because the reality is here with us. People.
Why not now? You say why is July?
Yeah, because there's lead and that some of the activities lag. Right, a lot of people still have inventory of different kind of things that they are using to carry out their trade. A lot of people still have reserves that have not run out yet. So I'm just trying to tell you that these things are going to run out, and you are going to have to go to the market to restock. Gotcha. It's going to be at new prices, and I just know that we have not seen the real impact yet, and that's why I believe that whatever government is doing, they really need to ramp up that activity and make sure that they nip this in the bud before it messes up the market. Let me talk about Dangote real quickly. You see, I think we have an opportunity since we cannot fix our local refinery in good time. I think the fact that Dangote is coming on stream, in the coming weeks, I assume, it's a very huge opportunity to ensure that subsidy removal can be properly managed. Yes, I get the fact that Dangote is a businessman and everything is on commercial basis. He needs to pay his loan, he needs to make his margin and all of that. That notwithstanding, the fact that the refinery is within this economy puts less pressure on our effects and balance of trade. And that should allow the government to be able to play a little bit. I mean, let's have it right. The market cannot be completely deregulated. There will still be interventions here and there when things are going to extreme ranges that will be too harmful to the
All right,
economy. So
I
yeah.
get you.
Sorry.
I think it's I do not think in any economy, in any ecosystem, you can increase prices by 300% or even 200%, and think the economy or that ecosystem would absorb it. America is a capitalist economy, but their farmers here get subsidized diesel. They literally color the diesel a different color. It's only for farmers. If they find you with that diesel, huge offense. That's America. Their farmers get diesel at a discounted price. So I'm not of the view
Exactly.
that everyone should pay the subsidy, the subsidized price. But I think the issue is the corruption. The scheme is corrupt. So I think the government is struggling with a way on how to apply this, should we say, palliative in a way that is not going to be corrupt. But the answer is already there. I've said this all the time. We have NIN phones, we have BVN, we have e-Naira. You can build something around all three. You can say, if you want to get a subsidy cash payment from the government, number one, go and pay your tax. When you pay your tax, what I mean, you file for taxes, then you take your car or your generator or your motorcycle, you go register that car with Federal Electricity Corp. Then you link that car, the VIN number on that car, you link it to your NIN phone. So your NIN phone is linked to your car VIN number. Then you then link all that and submit a request to get a cash via e-Naira paid to you. It could be say 5,000, it could be say 10,000 paid to your phone through e-Naira. So look at what's happening. You have a phone which is NIN enabled, linked to a car chassis which is registered with the Federal Reserve Corporation of Nigeria. You are paid e-Naira, not cash, e-Naira. When you go to the filling station, the filling station is selling its price at the normal retail price. You simply take your phone and you pay to the attendant that price. The attendant takes that e-Naira and settles, right? So that means if you're in Cameroon, you can't use that phone because you have no NIN, you have no BVN, you don't register your car in Federal City Corp. We have this thing already existing today, and we can implement it tomorrow. You can start from one local government, test it, start to roll it out. So that way, you say if you earn below a certain income in Nigeria, you would get a cash disbursement, but the pump price will be as it is. And this is just one idea. There are many ideas we can do so that the poor do not pay market prices for PMS. They cannot. It's just not possible. Let's forget the idea that has
Yeah.
cool that the poor just can't pay. Ahmed, you've got the floor. What's on your mind? Ahmed Toba. Thank you, comrade.
Yeah, thank you very much. I don't have much to say. Thanks for giving me the opportunity to speak. I just wanted to ask you some questions because I've always, follow your handle and I see some takes on policies and economies and everything. Yeah, I just wanted to ask a simple question that what or when do you kind of regard policy to be much more beneficial for the economy? Because I have at the back of my mind, if a policy, because there is no way you're gonna have a policy that doesn't have a disadvantage too. So is it? So far, what have you seen? From the policy being being proposed so far, does it have a much higher advantage, or does the advantage outweighs the disadvantage? And if we have more advantage, if we have if we have more advantage implementing all this policy, is it good to adopt them or to kind of like see it as a form of growth? That's just my question.
Great question. I think that's a good question. So I think it was Milton Friedman that says you have to look at policies by their results, not by their expectations or by what they say they're going to do. So you want to look at what will the policy do. Now, the problem with economics is this, right? It doesn't give you an answer. It gives you options. It gives you a choice. It tells you if you do A, you get this. If you do B, you get this. Then you choose. It's not going to tell you this is better than this. The government has a duty, right, to make things better for everybody. The markets have a duty to make things only better for the shareholders. So if you have a business, you are only concerned about your shareholders, but the government has a duty for everyone. So if you look at, say, healthcare in America, good example, right? The hospitals want to make money for their owners, but the government then comes in with Obamacare and says, okay, hospitals still make money, but as Obamacare, I will pay that cost. So it's like a win-win. Then we'll tax the quote-unquote rich to pay for that. So come back to Nigeria. What are we trying to, let's pick, say, the PMS policy. What are we trying to achieve? You know, we had, when Nigeria was discovered crude oil, right? It wasn't a lot of money. We didn't have a lot of money. From 19, what's the exact year now? For close to when we had the PTF, when we had Buhari, when we had Babangida, when we had Obasanjo, fuel price was not up to 10 naira a barrel, $10 a barrel. But go back to what Nigeria did in those years. We did everything in those years. Abuja, the railways, the ports, the schools, the 10-lane expressway in Lagos. We did all that when crude oil was less than $10 a barrel. How much was crude oil when we did Nigerian liquefied natural gas, right? So crude oil itself was very cheap. So Nigeria subsidized it because the crude oil price was cheap. As the years went ahead, crude oil price started to go from $10 a barrel to 50, 60, 70, even 100. So what did we do? We kept the subsidy and we somehow sold this narrative that that petrol is expensive in Nigeria because we don't refine it in Nigeria. So when the Ford refineries went bad, the narrative was that, oh, if we refine in Nigeria, fuel price would come down. Fuel is a derivative of crude oil. So if crude oil prices go up, PMS prices go up. But because refining didn't work, that narrative held forth. So now that we have a refinery, we think that prices are going to go down, which is also wrong. It's not going to go down. So what are we trying to do with this policy? We've passed a PIA that says the prices are now deregulated, which means there is no regulation in prices. If you build a refinery, you can sell at whatever price you want to sell. What does that do? That allows more players to come into the market, meaning that the prices long term will fall. That is the intent. What is the reality? Prices are going to go up in the short term. But what's the alternative? You keep on subsidizing. Can you subsidize $100 barrel? You cannot. What about 80? You cannot. Saudis can drill a hole in the ground and get oil. It's just sand. Nigeria has got to go to deep offshore to the swamps. It costs more. We need about $120 a barrel oil to balance our books if we sold only crude oil. So it's not conceivable for Nigeria to subsidize PMS, even if we could. So the whole idea of the PIA is to take the government out of this business of drilling oil, refining oil, take us out completely, let the private sector invest capital, take the risk, then tax the private sector, then take those taxes and then give the quote unquote palliative. And palliative means roads, education, and healthcare. That's what people need. You know, if fuel is expensive, but your kids are going to a good school, you have a good hospital down the road, you have security, you have a low income house, then what's the problem? You just will buy a bicycle. But if fuel is so expensive and you have to choose between eating and buying fuel, that's when it becomes a problem. So the issue is not really per se when you say the cost of fuel, it's had to do more with the costs of living in Nigeria is just too expensive. Fuel in America is very expensive, but what's the minimum wage? How much is food in America? It's very cheap. So I don't want to go too much, but that's I think the issue. you have to look at policy in terms of the outcome. If the outcome is good, then you have to work incrementally. You can't do it all in, say, 1 month. It's got to be a bit incremental. This is where I want to go to. People trust you, then you go there. In Nigeria, no one trusts the government. We know the policy of removing PMS is good, but no one trusts the government, and you can't blame people. No one trusts the government that are going to take that money and develop the roads and schools. No one trusts them. That's where I think the problem is really. Does that help answer the question a bit, Ahmed?
Yeah. I think that gives a clarification on that. And so, I mean, I was listening to, I don't know, someone was speaking earlier. I mean, you mentioned something about the local government. I mean, fully functioning to its maximum. Could that really help to kind of like, stabilize the economy and all? Because it's been a very huge problem that we have a dysfunctional local government,
Of
and
what?
majority
Of
of the people.
let me I hear you. If you step out of every house in Nigeria, you step out of, you are under the purview of your local government. The road in front of your house is a local government road. The gutter is a local government gutter. The hospital next to your house should be local government. Also, the schools. In the constitution, the local government run primary schools, not the federal, not NUT, not all that thing. It's the local government. So the problem is that over time, we've turned local governments to agencies of the states, and we have to go back to allowing the local governments to operate as our own government, so we can actually go and hold the councillors and the chairman to account for the nearly 300, it's going to now be nearly 500 million that the poorest local government will get. Imagine a local government guy is going to get 500 million naira a month, and you say you cannot build roads with 500 million naira a month. That's nearly $1 million a month. If I give you $1 million a month and I say go and help where you are from, you can't build roads, hospitals, and not even hospitals, but clinic. You can't build that. That's the point, Ahmed. We've got to do better, and we'll only do better if we hold those guys accountable. Thanks, Ahmed. Let's get I am a Jua in here. I am a Jua. How you doing, sir? Go ahead. Hey, how you
Hello.
doing?
Good evening, good evening, everybody. Thank you, Mr. Kalu. I've been following you for a long time, and you've been very, very, you've enlightened us a lot. But there are two things I want to point out. Yes, the subsidy, we all know that subsidy was supposed to go. Also, the need to address the FX issues. But what I think is that government tends to run away from problems instead of facing them head on. I believe that before taking out removing subsidy, let us look at the corruption in the system. Who are we? Who are we prosecuting? Who are we investigating
Bro.
to really address the issue? Do you understand? Because now there are forces who hijacked the whole process, right? We did not address who are these people who hijacked the whole petrol transaction and the rest. We just run away from, okay, how do I address it? End
Are you
it.
saying that what we should do is that before we take away the subsidy, whatever we've done, right, we should first of all ask the FCC
Yes.
to go and do the investigation on all that? Is that what you're saying?
Yes, really. I believe, and it's not a long process. If you investigate individuals, the NNPC, they are the sole importers. Do you understand? It's not going to take a long time to really at least shake them up. Everybody will stop some of these
Why can't
things, right? When we look
why
at
can
okay, you're
why
saying
can't we
something.
do both?
Okay, now because now we say NNPC says we consume 60 million liters, right? If we stop subsidy removal, if we end subsidy removal, right? Are we even okay now that it has been removed? What is government doing? Are they investigating these people? Have we called NNPC to question them? Because NNPC is a company. If Kiari is a CEO, he cannot address the board and say, I'm paying for subsidy for 60 million liters. but I'm not sure if the 60 million liters are being used in Nigeria. And I know that something I paid for is found in Sudan. When I watched that interview he had on Channels TV, I was mad. I said, why would this guy say this? You paid for subsidy, and somebody is telling you that this your product you paid for is in Sudan, and you had the audacity to say it on TV. Is that not a failure on your own
I
part?
get you. So again, there's no one that agrees with having an investigation. I think the part people
Yeah.
is like, I mean, even Peter Obi said this, that you don't shut down your store and go and chase a crook. You can do two at the same time. You can still remove the subsidy and still prosecute even at the same time. The point is that paying
Yes.
subsidy, even if there's no corruption, let's assume there is no corruption, that it's 100% legal, we can't afford it. That's the point I'm making. Crude oil
Yeah.
itself, we
Okay.
can't afford it. Even there is no corruption. So it has to go. What the last administration did to retain subsidy cost them a lot of money. It cost them more. Okay, quick question for you. Should we have cheap fuel, or should we have cheap education and cheap health? Choose one.
For me personally, I want subsidy to go, right? I want cheap education. Even if I don't even want anything cheap, if people can afford it. Do you understand? If I afford a relatively high tuition fees, there's no problem with that. If I earn 10 million and I pay 2 million naira school fees, it's nothing. It's nothing for me. But if I earn 30,000 naira and school fees is 20,000
So,
or 40,000
and
naira, it's cheap, but I cannot
but you've
afford it. Do you
You've answered
understand?
it. And again, like I said, you are correct. I think just the issue is got just like the timing. I think you can do both. I think you can take away the subsidy and prosecute at the same time. But we cannot afford subsidy. That's the point I'm making. I made it to Ahmed. The
Yes,
issue has been that we Nigerians have believed that crude oil is in Nigeria, thus we can afford it. No. In economics, the cost of something is not what you are paying for it, but what you are foregoing. So when we take
yes,
crude oil, the cost of that crude oil is the cost of the schools that we forego when we took that crude oil to spend on private jet. That's really the cost of it. And so I think we should do
yeah,
both, if anything, at the same time. But I do get your point. I hear you. Let's
yes. Okay, and let's talk about. I want to talk about
very quickly.
the naira float and all that,
Go
right?
ahead. Yes.
I also believe that. We should, especially for this exchange rate, we should have been able to attack the corruption in the system. I'm a custom broker, right? I have customers, importers, exporters, and the like. And I understand. I know what they face, the challenges they face. Do you know that for you to get FX at approved rates, you need to settle a lot of people in CBN and within the banking system for every dollar 200 naira.
Yeah.
Who are the people? Who are the people holding these
But
things and making it difficult? They created an artificial scarcity. Do you understand? To make
it's
dollar, because now you're under pressure to
it's
deliver.
not.
So these are the issues. I believe that our naira should not even be up to 500. Exchange rate should not be up to 500 naira to a dollar. That's what I
Yeah, but
believe.
I I,
If you take away
I hear you.
corruption,
Again, leave this corruption.
yeah,
Corruption is on its own resting. We are disturbing it. The corruption is just on its own. Leave it alone. Without corruption, what makes your dollar go up is demand and supply. Do you watch DSTV? Do
yeah,
you
I do.
follow Arsenal?
I
You are
do.
importing. You are an importer.
Yeah.
As long as you watch Arsenal and you don't watch Ayimba, you are importing. It's as simple as that. And Nigerians import a lot. If you import, you can't expect your dollar or the naira to be strong. So the point I'm trying to make is this, right? It doesn't have to be corruption. There is nothing wrong with imports. The largest importer on earth is what? Guess the country that's largest importer on earth. Guess the country. It's
America,
China. China is the largest
China.
importer.
Okay,
Guess the largest exporter on earth.
China
China.
too.
The issue is not import. The issue is net export. Nigeria's problem is that we are importing to consume, and we're exporting raw materials. If we simply flipped it around, if we imported machinery and we imported more machinery and we exported cases of cocoa seeds, we'll have no problem. So it's not really let the market determine the price of dollar. If you want now, they've said if you want dollar, go and buy. If you want to import pure water from France, go to the bank, fill from M, import pure water from France, pay 5 to 7 naira. No problem. No problem. All right, well, let me get Agbo to that. Agoko, Ago, Jesus, don't worry,
Hi. I'm sure we've had a few back and forth on your
we
side,
have.
right? I'm sure you would have noticed me. Yeah, I in my last year of university, I spent a lot of time on my thesis studying behavioral economics, right? So I want to agree with the last speaker. All right, I'm very obedient. I support Obi's
Mhm.
policies, right? One thing that we Nigerians love is transparency, right? If there's nothing wrong in removing subsidy, the subsidy has to go. But being transparent about how much we spent on subsidy, where the money goes, how it's going to be done, will make people more at ease. Right now, there's so much confusion in the air. There's so much uncertainty. Investors hate uncertainty. Investors like a stable market. Yeah, they said the market rallied because he removed it, blah, blah, blah. That will backfire. I'm giving it a couple of months and will fully see the impact of this removal of the subsidy and floating the naira. There's one thing to float the naira, and there's one thing to let people understand why we are floating the naira, right? But they are not making it clear. The average man on the street doesn't understand why. As behavioral economics, we always stress the importance of talking to the people and making them understand why you're doing certain things. And that is what Obi was trying to stress, right? I don't even think the government right now, they understand what they're doing. I have this feeling that they're just doing what they need to do, what we feel, what they feel people want us to do. But they're not engaging enough economists. They're not engaging them to say, okay, what is 3 month impact? What's the 6 month impact? What's the 1 year impact? Right? You're not putting it on screen. You're not letting people see it and visualize it. So hence, I feel this is going to backfire in the wrong way. When a lot of people become hungry, they're going to get on the streets. And end SARS would just be a drop in the bucket for what is to come if we don't start implementing visible palliatives at the extreme lower level, like extreme bottom level. If my gate man cannot understand why he needs to pay an extra $3,000, sorry, 3,000 naira on the cost of gas or petrol, he's going to be resentful. Probably he might go into my father's house and attack him and steal things because, well, he's hungry. My father cannot pay an increased salary. Why? Because he's on a tight pension budget. So we're not understanding the level, the granular level. Right now, my mom was telling me that in the market, it's so scanty because people can't even buy basic things like Gary. So I think we need to, Tinubu, whoever his team, they need to really go back to the drawing board and look at what they're doing and try to understand the 6 month impacts of what all these things they're doing in a haste might result in. I yield my mic.
Yeah, I hear you, but I don't. I think we're all in agreement to this, right? The policy is good. I think like I tweeted earlier, the implementation I think is not that good. The communication is not good. Those people don't really see why we're doing this, right? Again, it's very important. Let me stress again. What they are changing is what any sane person should have changed. When in 2015, we had no business subsidizing PMS when the price went down to $14 a barrel. That's when we should have taken it off and done what we're doing today. But in 2015, we didn't. And then when fuel prices went back up, we couldn't pay for it. Same thing with the dollars. In 2015, we instituted capital controls and we got kicked out of the JP Morgan bond index. So this is the point I'm making. The policy is good. I'm worried about the implementation and the communication of that policy. I completely agree with you, Ogo. We have to not just communicate better, but also go in and alleviate, i.e., palliate that bottom of the pyramid section of the market, so that we don't just have a good macroeconomic picture, but underneath the pyramid, people are suffering. That's not going to work. So I agree with you. I hear you. And we're saying this so that the government can pick it up and say, okay, we have to move faster on communicating. We have to do it better. We have to ensure that we tell people why we are doing what we're doing, but we have to make sure we take care of those at the bottom of the pyramid. That's completely agree with that sentiment completely. Dr. Joshua, do we've got the floor, sir.
Yeah, good evening. Good evening,
Right.
everyone. I hope you can all hear
Yes.
me. Okay, yeah, sorry. I just want to talk about what somebody talked about, and I want to talk about transparency of the government with some of these policies that are good on paper. I'll take the naira floating, for example. I still do not believe that the government floated the naira. It was just clearly devalued because the rate CBN is reporting is different from the rates that news channels are reporting for the I and E window. And that's the problem with some of these policies, because I feel like they weren't thoroughly executed. They did them in the East. And like sometimes it feels like they have no idea of what they were doing. It looked like the Daily Trust news that broke out was just like a smoke screen for them to gauge what is happening. Because how can you say you're floating the Naira and then CBN's last reported value of a Naira to dollar is 589? So we need to like get that one clear first, that the Naira was simply devalued. There's no floating going on, and there's this problem of transparency. That's my
Can, can,
first point. The
can I
second point
can I just don't lose your thoughts, sir. Don't lose your thought. Just for people listening, right? When you remove the peg, you've allowed it to devalue. So you are saying the same thing. If you have a peg, before this policy, we had a peg, NAFEX 463. That was the peg. Now they've taken off the peg, which means that it can devalue or appreciate. So you are saying the same thing. You can't devalue if there's a peg. America, do you hear America saying, Fed saying they've devalued? They don't say it because there's no peg. So just to make that point. So please go ahead, sir.
Yeah, the reason why I said that was because when CBN published their guidelines, they said they were going to announce the value, because CBN actually still on their website, which is what I rely on at least. They made it clear that they are going to use a value based on what they are noticing from the I&E window. They published the guidelines to follow. So an average Nigerian now, it looks like there are like three rates. We have the black market rate that, I mean, so far is still not changing. Then we have the weight that the weight from the importers and exporter window, and then we have the weight published by CBN. So
No,
everything looks like
no.
quite confusing.
Again, just to
That's that. Maybe you clarify on that later. Then my second. Okay, you want to
go
speak?
ahead.
Sorry, let me
Go
allow you
ahead.
speak.
Go ahead. Go ahead, sir.
No, you can go ahead. So I don't want to lose my train of thought. You can just go ahead.
Go ahead. Go ahead. Sir. I know. Go ahead, sir.
Okay, sorry. Okay. Now the second point I wanted to make was the cost of governance. The cost of governance. I mean, if we were going to the way this country is structured, it is the middle class people and the people in poverty that get to like make sacrifices every time. The cost of governance has not been reduced in any way. I just felt like a lot of housekeeping should have been done before they made some of these draconian policies that is affecting a lot of people, a lot of average people. If the cost of governance is still high, and then you are taking all the subsidy. In fact, we are hearing that education subsidy is going out. It doesn't look like good management to me.
Okay.
So that's the second point I wanted to make.
Yeah, good point. On that second point, I think I agree with you in terms of we've not really done the mapping to say, okay, if we take away subsidy, who gets affected, what population class gets affected, or what income class gets affected, how can we go and help them? We haven't done that. The student loan one, good policy. What they've brought out to me is it's a non-starter. I think they should just take it back and redo it. What they brought out is a non-starter. The funding is simply too low. The guidelines too onerous. And yes, the government has got to get out of funding education. The government cannot fund higher education. Let me even give you a good start, Joshua. Yeah. Anywhere you look in the world, if you look at the developed economy, do you know one way to know economy is developed? Look at how much the government funds higher education. In the developed economies, the government funds primary and secondary more than higher education, i.e., tertiary. In the underdeveloped, or should we say third world countries, the government funds more of tertiary than primary and secondary. It's a strange start, and you can look it up yourself. So, say go to America, they fund more of primary and secondary than universities, i.e., the government. But if you come to Nigeria, the government is funding more of universities than primary and secondary. We've got to take the money, the little money we have, and fund more primary, fund more secondary, and allow the universities to liaise with the private sector via endowments to fund universities. That's what we should do. And students' loan are one way to do it. But what they brought out is a non-starter. So I agree with you on the second point. On the first point, just to clarify, again, not arguing, just giving clarity, right? What they've done is this. In the past, the CBN had one pegged currency. So you had the NAFEX rate. The NAFEX rate is the pegged rate. Then you had the black market rate. So the black market rate was the real rate. The NAFEX rate was the CBN's attempt to buy your dollars at a lower price. What they've done now, they've taken away the peg and allowed the bank. So CBN has no rate anymore. It's the banks that have a rate. So if you go to First Bank or Zenith or Access Bank, you buy your dollars from those banks based on willing buyer, willing seller. What CBN is publishing on their website is, and I'm quoting to them here, yeah, this is the weighted average rate, which is the summation of volumes of FX traded multiplied by the various rates. So that first citrate you are seeing is the summated weighted average of Access, First Bank, Unity Bank, even any player that is buying and selling currency. So it's not an exchange rate. It's sort of like an index. So you can say, oh, the index went up, the index went down. But the individual entity making up that index could be higher than the 468 or lower. So just to make that point clear, there is no CBN rate. It's the bank rate. CBN is publishing the index of what those banks are being up and down so that you can see if the index is going up and down as a comparative. But if you want to buy, you've got to go to your bank and bid, and the rate your bank gives you is the real rate. So you can argue that there are just two rates, right? Your bank rate and the black market rate. But those two rates are going separately because people in Nigeria still do not know that the bank is giving you the same rate as the black market. Once people in Nigeria know, you will see those rates will converge, because why would you do foreign transfer through the black market that can get lost? I lost money trying to transfer money through a guy before. So that's what's going to happen going forward. Again, just clarity. I think your points are fair, but just giving clarity on that. All right, let's get Open Arena. Open Arena, you've got the floor.
Hello.
How you doing, sir? Open Arena, can you speak, or should I just move on? Okay, let's get Nedu. Nedu, go ahead, sir. Sorry about that. Nedu, you've got the floor. Go ahead.
All right. Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Okay. Yeah. Thanks. I follow you on Twitter, and yeah, you got quite an interesting takes, and I think you're doing a great job to help break down some of these complex topics.
Thanks, sir.
Even though I think some of your views, and I mean that's the beauty about knowledge and economics. People always have their different views. When it comes to this. Subsidy in PMS and FX. Let me start with the FX part because I think that's the more easier one. For me, that's the one that we can't do without, right? It's something we needed to do. The government and the people. At times we talk about, it's more money for the government. At the end of the day, the government is there for the people. A government is ranked or judged not by how much revenue they pay, they collect, but by the improvement in the quality of life of the people. So the valuation, the flotation, I'm not a technical economics, right? We can call it whatever terms we want to call it. In the short term, it's a lot of pain. And I think the effects of that are going to come true in the next coming months. Fuel prices in a food regulated environment.
Nedu, your audio is kind of low and wobbly. Let me
Okay,
go.
hold on. I'm outside. Let me get into the house, see if it's better. Can you hear me better?
Go ahead.
Okay, yeah. So there's going to be a lot of pain in the short term. Fuel prices are going to get higher. A lot of Nigerian industries do a lot of importation, so their cost of goods and cost of services and cost of power, cost of goods and services are going to get higher. So they will need to charge a higher cost to turn a profit. So indirectly, goods are going to get more expensive. Salaries are not increased, so it's not a win-win. There's going to be a lot of inflation. There's going to be a lot of pain. When it comes to the subsidy, I have a different view of the subsidy. Every country in the world, and I think we've given subsidy such a bad name. It's like everything wrong with Nigeria is because of fuel subsidy. I don't actually agree to that. Subsidy is the only thing. Fuel subsidy is the only thing the Nigerian government does to benefit Nigerians. And I think some earlier speakers have said that. And I'll just talk politics and then move on. A government that is currently in power that over time, didn't actually show that they really had empathy and care for the people. And we're expecting them to do miracles. I don't think this government really cares for the people. There's going to be a lot of pain. Because if you are sincere, right, fuel subsidy, okay, we're paying, let me say a figure, 1 trillion naira. You and I and everybody knows that that is not the actual figure, right? The first step, logically, for a government that's looking to add value to people is like, oh, we're paying 1 trillion, but we think maybe this should be 500 billion. So let's say hands off, we get more efficient, track the waste, we are saving 500 billion. And then you look at the people. Nigerians, to a very high proportion, pay a lot of money on transportation and fuel-related costs. It's transportation. Because we don't have adequate power, a lot of people use fuel to generate products, right? So once you increase that, everything is going to go high.
Yeah, but Nedu,
Okay,
we know this. So I want you to go land the ship. We know this.
Okay, let me land. So what I'm saying, before you do that, the first thing you could have done is, let's reduce this 1 trillion to 500 billion, right? Another step could be, rather than taking it off 100%, let's take it off 50%. So instead of fuel getting more expensive, 200-300%, it gets more expensive 50%. And before you take it off completely, you say, you know what? The condition is, before we take off fuel subsidy, our power generation is, and I'm just quoting numbers, 3,000 megawatts. Here's the commitment to Nigerians. We're going to raise our power generation because Nigerians spend a lot of fuel on power. We're going to raise our power generation to 8,000 megawatts. And conditional on that, when we do that, then we 100% take out subsidy. Because what is subsidy? In the developed world, subsidy is I give you 400 billion in the idea that at the end of the day, that 400 billion I'm giving you as a subsidy, you're able to generate 500, 600 billion. So the net value added to the economy is still positive. It's still 200 million.
I hear you.
That's what subsidy is.
Nedu,
But
I
we're
hear
giving such a bad name that anything subsidy is bad.
Nedu,
Nigerians need subsidy to
I hear you.
survive. So before you take it out, you need to set benchmarks. One, how much are we really spending on fuel subsidy?
Nedu, I hear
we
you.
say 500 billion,
Gotta
good.
move
So
on.
we now have 500 billion. Okay, before we take out 500 billion, we're going
All right, Nedu, I hear you, and I agree with you. The rollout could have been graduated. Completely agree with you. We could have put benchmarks and said, yes, this is the rollout. These are our success factors. Completely agree. Like I've said those points at the very beginning. I think we don't have any policy paper on the PMS subsidy removal apart from what the president said and what the NNPC the CEO has said. We have nothing else. So everything you are saying is completely correct, and that maybe we should have done it that way. Completely agree with you. But remember this, right? The government is completely broke. By paying subsidy for 8 years, we spent our commonwealth to do that. And the blame is on the past administration. We should have taken subsidy away a long time ago. We did not. We simply retained subsidy and printed 31 trillion to cover up for that loss of revenue. So I completely agree with you. But the reality is that the government is broke. And the subsidy removal is going to give the government at all levels more money. Somebody is asking why on a DM. The way subsidy is paid, when the government earns money, right? When the NNPC earns money, it earns dollar. It converts the dollars to naira. But because the NNPC is paying subsidy, what the NNPC does is that it debits the subsidy, the revenues it gets to pay for subsidy. So it doesn't pay anything to FARC. So NNPC is not contributing anything to FARC. That's what's going on. So when you then remove the subsidy, there will be more money going to federal, states, and local, which is one of the reasons why it was removed the way it was done. The states, local governments are broke. I'm not saying it's correct. I'm giving you why it was done. Open Arena, let's hope you can speak now. Open Arena.
Hi, Kalu. Thank you. I mean, I had a problem with my network.
Okay, go ahead.
Great job. Great job. I'll be very, very straight to the point. Three questions. One, do we still are we still in a democracy? I'm sorry, I'm asking you directly.
We had an election, didn't we?
Okay, yeah. So I take it from you, we're still in a democracy. Second question is this: what is the landing cost of petrol PMS?
You want the actual figure? It's online.
I don't mind.
No,
I don't
online.
mind.
I can get it online, but I can't do it right now.
Okay, but I'll be subject to all kinds of it's not correct. Are you really sure? Yeah, I hope you know, and I know you know. Yeah. So the third question is this. Now, um, you said something about the reasons as to how we came about subsidy. I might have a small disagreement with that. I mean, that is elementary economics. You said, okay, so the cost those years, yesteryears, it was as low as $10. I mean, we're having double digits, $20. I mean, we could afford subsidy. But how about looking at it like this? This is a country that produces oil, right? So the price goes up, we make more money. So how is it now we can't afford it? This is just little mathematics.
The math is simple now. The math is very simple. When did crude oil go past $3 a barrel? Three, one, two, three. What year? Go plot on 1960 to 2023. Plot crude oil prices. Just go online. Ask ChatGPT. Give me crude oil price from 1960 to 2023, and look at the graph it gives you. For decades, crude oil was below $3, then below $10, and in those years, Nigeria paid a subsidy. We didn't notice it. The year when the crude oil prices started to go high was the year our refineries went bad. So the narrative, I said it before, that was sold was that if you refine locally, you are able to get cheap PMS, which is false. PMS is a derivative of crude. Now, crude is $78 all the way to $100. How do you subsidize that? How? You are subsidizing dollars. That's what you're doing. How else are you going to do it?
You know, so I'm still saying that. So we produce oil, right? So the price goes up. It does good for our accounts, right?
Are you asking? Yes, if the price goes up, we earn more for forex. Yeah.
So I mean, is the minus and plus of this that I still don't get? It goes up. We earn more, so we can now afford more of the subsidy.
No, the subsidy is because the price has gone up. When you have a subsidy, you have a regulated price. For instance, you say the regulated price is 100 naira. So when crude oil price goes above the regulated price, you subsidize it. So when crude oil prices go up, subsidy goes up. When crude oil price goes down, there is no subsidy because it's below the regulated price.
I might just have to revisit my elementary. This is a bit still. I really thought about this before coming on. I didn't want to waste anybody's time, but I still don't
This
agree.
is a simple thing now, Oga. The retail price is, let's assume, is 200 naira retail price. That price is fixed by NNPC. Let's say it's 200. That is a fixed price by the NNPC. Now, why you are paying a subsidy is because crude oil, when you earn money in crude oil, the price is up or down. Let's say it's above 200. That means, let's say it's 300. That extra 100 is the subsidy that NNPC is paying because it fixed the price at 200, but the price of crude when refined is 300. So they have to make the price 200. So they pay a subsidy of 100. But if the price of crude oil is 100 and the regular price is 200, there's no subsidy. Then you earn money. That's why they call it under recovery in NNPC's language. Under recovery, because they are recovering underneath their revenue target. If crude oil price falls to 40, like 2015, NNPC makes more money because they are recovering the difference between crude and PMS. But once crude oil goes up, then they are under recovering the difference between crude and PMS. The subsidy is paid because crude oil price goes up, not down. Hope it makes sense.
Like I said before, it looks like you're putting more emphasis on our PMS, right? So we are actually exporting crude, right? And I think that
The
that
cost
volume,
of
whatever
the
we're doing,
cost of the crude is the alternative lost. That's economics. So the cost when you take crude oil and refine locally, you have lost the foreign earnings. You are spending in naira, but you've lost the foreign earnings. So you can't say because you make crude oil, you can simply take it. It's like if you have a bakery, then you go to the bakery and you take the bread and you eat. You are losing the revenues you would have gained if you sold that bread. That's what you are losing. If you refine what Saudi Arabia are doing today, Saudi Arabia today is buying cheap Russian oil to use locally, then selling their own crude oil to the West. Why don't they sell their crude or use their crude locally? Why? Saudi Arabia. Google it. They are buying cheap Russian diesel to Saudi. That's what they're doing now in Saudi. Then they're exporting their diesel because their diesel costs more, and Saudi diesel and Russian diesel costs less. That's what they're doing. It's math. It's not hard to do economics. It's math. If you regulate the price, then you generate a subsidy.
Sorry, bro. Sorry, has it always been like that over the
No,
years? As the
subsidy
Saudi,
came. If you look at the chart, when did the subsidy start? When the refineries went down. That's when subsidy has always been there. When the federal government and military guys took over power in 1997.
no, sorry. For the Saudis, has it always been like that over the years
No,
for
they
them?
don't
Has been
tend to do it now because there's a price differential in Russian diesel because it's sanctioned, so it's cheaper. That's why
so there have been times that the Saudi were using their own
all
products, there's their own refined products
they
for their
feed their
citizens.
abroad all the time. This is just a peculiar project that they're doing right now. Just peculiar. All right, let's get Dr. Go ahead.
So
You want to speak, Ajibola? You've got the floor. Go ahead.
just want no continue.
I'm just explaining to open arena. You can do it yourself. Just Google it and get them. It's clear. If you the issue is a regulated price. When you see subsidy removal both on the forex market and the PMS market, it's because there's a regulated peg. When you remove the peg, then the subsidy goes because it's now market driven. Hence, that's why you're paying more for your diesel. Then the subsidy goes away because there's no more peg. If there's no more peg, there is nothing to subsidize because there's no under or over recovery. That's what's going on. Dr. Dollar, good day, sir. Dr. Dollar,
Thank you very much. Good
good evening,
evening.
sir.
First and foremost, I must commend you, Kalu, for putting this together. I'll circle back to the lady who did behavioral economics and spoke about communication and why we needed to tell people what exactly is going on. That's what we're doing on this platform this evening. We are gaining knowledge, we are gaining understanding, and it's our duty and our responsibility to take this knowledge and information back to our father's security guard and our mother's driver and to the woman in the market. We need to support the government to be able to take the information to the people on the lower cadre of the society. Now, I'm not going to speak hypothetically from the economics point of view, but I'm going to speak from the real market point of view. And when I say real market, I mean it as in real people's market. I'm looking at the 1st of September, which will be 90 days after the subsidy was removed. and our children have to go back to school, what would the school fees be like? What would be the indices that would justify any kind of increase in school fees? Are we now going to move children away from that private school to a lower private school because that's what we can afford? Or is funding going to go in the direction of the primary and the secondary education that you spoke about, so that there'll be increased value in those schools for our children to be able to go to that school? So let me talk. A bit. I lived somewhere in Lagos where there were about 7 primary schools and secondary schools in one very large compound. There were 7 different schools there with 7 different school uniforms, and there was always a lot of noise at break time. We do assembly till tomorrow, because we're part of 7 assemblies, if you know what I mean. All right. Many of us don't send our children to those schools because they are public schools. Now, that's not the truth. We don't send our children to those schools because they are heavily underfunded, and the quality of education in those schools is not at par with what we would want, and this is what we get in the private. So regarding opportunity cost, we choose these schools. So this issue of subsidy removal, we have to teach it now, because I asked the person who invited me to this meeting this evening, I asked him that, what is the indices to show that the Nigerian economy today cannot absorb the fuel subsidy removal, the education subsidy removal, the dollar subsidy removal? What are those things that we need to see or that would happen for us to know that we have hit the brink? Because with the increase in fuel prices now, apart from transportation, I'm not really hearing huge cries like I would have expected it. It's either we've started spending our savings without knowing it, or the economy had too much or excess cash liquidity that is now falling into the right places and creating that shock absorber, and we can't see it. I don't have answers, but God sparing our lives, we'd all wake up on the 1st of September when it's time for children to go back to school. I'll leave here. Thank you, Carlo.
And doctor, I think the where you would see the effect of this is going to be when you start to see companies submit their, maybe this is quarter 4 reports. Watch out for the sales for fast moving consumer goods. Watch out what they've sold in the same quarter last year and this quarter. That's where you see the fall in demand. There's going to be a fall in demand. If you look at anecdotal evidence already on Twitter, people are saying, I'm not driving my car, I'm not putting my generator on. There's actually a report that says consumption of PMS has crashed about 11 million barrels per day. So consumption definitely would fall. What would happen is that people are going to choose what are a need and what is a want. Education is a need. People are going to pay for that, but there's going to be less holidays, less watching Arsenal, less beer drinking, less all that stuff is going to go. And those are companies that are going to suffer. Nigerian breweries, horrible result. You're going to see Guinness again with a bad result. You're going to see most of these goods, local goods that are like quote unquote substitute, that you can substitute with a cheaper brand. They're going to have very, very bad results. That's what we're going to see, doctor. And it's real. It's going to be real. It's not economics. It's going to be real.
Thank you very
You're
much.
welcome. Let's get just dropped again. Ali Basiriat.
Hello, good
Good evening.
evening. Can you guys hear me? Hello, can you
Yes, I
hear
can hear you
me?
very well. Go for it, ma'am.
Yeah, I think Dr. Dollar actually like said some of the things I wanted to
Mm-hmm.
say, because this is it. The thing is, I don't think like coming here to give like so much analysis of some certain things, like that is not even literally about the reality that we're facing right now, because a lot of things are happening like every day. You go out, you are meeting like scary things. I will call it, because you go out and then you all you know is, okay, there's an increase in fuel price, and then the next thing you are going to a pharmacy to get drugs, and they're telling you, I saw somebody say something today that that they said paracetamol was 10,000 at a mall, which was, I know maybe probably the person is exaggerating, but obviously like they are ridiculous
Yeah.
prices, like getting high every day. And then you just have to question the government at all times, because this is a country that has already crashed, I would call it, because we've had like past presidents or past leaders coming to do their own thing. There were no proper checks. They'll implement laws. They'll probably maybe fund it, and then at the end of the day, somebody would just decide to hijack it, use the public fund to do whatever it is they want to do, and then there's nobody to even question them. About the public school, I could remember, like, when growing up, I could remember a time in my school. I attended a boarding school, and then it was during good luck time. Abi Yaradu, I can't remember. And they came to arrest my principal in my school. Why? Because they had funded her money to build a library for the students, a bigger library, because it was a federal government school, so quite very big. And then the library that she built was not up to the capacity of the students. And then something happened. They came to our school for inspection, and that's how they found out. This actually happened in Abuja, like the federal
Mm.
capital. And now I feel like it happened because it was the federal capital. Now I'm so very sure like there are other places like that too, where they are funding. Obviously, the government is funding, and then they are not carrying out their duties. Computers bought for schools are being hijacked, used for personal, as in personal things and all that. And instead, for me, I just feel like instead of taking a step, nobody's saying first subsidy removal is actually very bad. It's not a bad idea to me, of course. But again, I just feel like some certain things are supposed to be put in place, at least for the survival of the
Mm.
people. I could remember just recently when they did this nonsense money thing, new money rubbish. Do you understand? And then a lot of people were just literally people died at the hospital because they said they came to the hospital, there was no money, the transaction was not going, the network was bad. So you see that our leaders take decisions, and then it's so clear that they don't
Mm.
care about how the normal man would feel, or how what they would go through. Somebody said something here like that, oh, the poor people actually pay the price all the
Mm.
time, because of course no matter what they do, at the end of the day they are going to be fine.
Mm.
So you can't tell me now that, okay, the country where okay, companies are going to be coming, so why didn't you put those things in check first before you say you want to remove first subsidy? If you want to remove if you want to remove first subsidy, and you're so aware that, okay, people go to work every day, we live in a country where even the private sector, like the private companies where you work, there's no guarantee that they're going to increase your salary where you work. They know that if they remove this first subsidy, obviously your salary that you are collecting presently will not even be enough to even transport you to your workplace, not to talk of feeding your family and the rest. And then you still went ahead to take it just like that. For me, I just felt like it's not like that thing was even implemented like really well. He just said it during the inauguration, and yes, they just picked it up the following day, and then it was first subsidy
Mm.
removal. Do you understand? And up to this very moment, okay, I'm waiting for the president to come and say, it's not like I actually removed, not like I say I just made the intention, not like I said they should do it now. But no,
And that's
at
Ali,
least the student loan.
and that's I think the should we say the escape route I see, that when things go south, they're going to say they never said it, that the president said it, and that they never give it because
Mhm.
there's no policy.
Obviously, because I keep saying that, at least the student loan thing. I know that, oh, I saw him signing one paper that they said it was student loan, that signing it to the law. Okay, fine. Do you understand? But this man was just saying this thing verbally, and then the next thing I just saw that, okay, everything has gone up, and I feel like, okay, maybe they sat down and decided that that's how they wanted to do
Yeah,
it. But it's just so bad for us to start talking about that, like starting from now, because we never even do 1 month for inside this
yeah.
government.
I mean,
Do you
you
understand?
see,
So it's actually so pathetic, like it's so
I hear
bad.
you.
It's so very bad. I'm talking to you like right now, even when you say, oh, a lot of companies are going to like suffer from it, like, oh, the Nigerian brewery and the rest. Obviously, some of these things are things that make people happy too. I feel like a lot of people just want to go and sit out there and drink their beers and be fine. Do you understand? And so why would you want to just come and crash all of those things just because you want to obviously make an impact? I feel like all of those things are supposed to put in check too. Do you understand?
I
So
think
the thing is, it's so tiring. This country is just overwhelming. Like every day by day, they do
I,
things that they just however
I
they
hear
want to
you.
do it. However, I think I will just rest here.
So, Mr. Kalu, can I speak?
I hear you. I hear you, my sister. You see, the thing is this, right? No, welcome. Thank you for you poured out your mind, right? I think I'm trying to be fair and move the price up 300%. There are lots of things they could have done before they announced it. And talked about
Chekalo, I think you're having a network issue, or is it just me? I can't really hear you.
Exactly, same.
Kalu, your network is very, very bad, I guess. Kalu, are you there?
I think anybody can go ahead to speak because I think he's just having a network issue.
Maybe we should wait for him to fix it. Since he's the moderator here, so we should know how we'll go about it. Let's see if maybe he has to log up and come back again or something. I don't know.
If you log everybody out or what?
Yeah, it's to log everybody out, of course. But he has network issues, so what do we do?
I think maybe you should just say something at the message section so that we could know what to do if that is the option or any other thing. I don't know.
Maybe we should be speaking while we wait for him because the point we are discussing is a kind of general point. Anybody can make a valid point and it will be discussed while we wait for him.
All right. Maybe I should just drop my submission first. Ali Basirat, you said something that the president just said that they should remove subsidy, and that was all. No, that was not it. There was no provision for the new budget. There was no provision for PMS up to